The sun rose slowly over the city of Neo-London. Skyscrapers gleamed in the morning light, and the streets below buzzed with life. Cars moved smoothly, drones hovered above, and people walked quickly to their work. Everything looked perfect. Everything seemed normal. But beneath this calm, something was quietly stirring. In a small laboratory on the edge of the city, Dr. Elena Torres examined a strange signal on her monitor. Her brow furrowed. "This is unusual," she whispered. The signal was weak, almost invisible, but it was definitely not from Earth. It pulsed in a rhythm, like a heartbeat. She tried to analyze it, but her computer struggled to decode the pattern. Meanwhile, across the city, children played in the park. Birds sang and the wind moved gently through the trees. Everything seemed peaceful, yet some of the birds acted strangely. They circled the park in odd patterns, as if they were searching for something or warning of something unseen. At the same time, in the skies above, satellites began to flicker. A few failed without explanation. Ground control teams scrambled to fix the problems, but no one could find a reason. It was small, subtle, and easy to ignore. Humanity had never noticed such signs before. In the streets, life went on. People argued over trivial matters, rushed for meetings, and scrolled endlessly on their devices. No one paid attention to the small anomalies around them. But deep down, some felt a strange tension, a feeling they could not explain. It was like the air itself was heavier, and the world was holding its breath. At the same time, the government of Earth received reports from all over the world. Strange animal behavior, unexplained electronic malfunctions, and unusual weather patterns were increasing. Scientists held urgent meetings, but they disagreed on the cause. Some thought it was a natural phenomenon. Others believed it was man-made. Few could imagine the truth. Elena's team was growing anxious. "If this signal is intelligent," she said, "then it's studying us, watching us, and we don't even know it." Her assistant, Ravi, shook his head. "It's probably nothing," he said nervously. "Just interference, maybe a glitch." But deep down, even he felt a creeping worry. Something about this signal was different. Across the ocean, in the cities of New Tokyo, Neo Cairo, and Sao Paulo, people noticed similar small oddities. Birds refused to land. Dogs barked at empty spaces. Machines acted strangely. A few journalists tried to report it, but most people laughed. "It's just weird weather," they said, or a glitch in the news feed. The world ignored the warning signs. In a quiet suburb, an old man named Jonah watched the sky. He had seen many strange things in his long life, but this was new. The clouds moved strangely, almost as if they were alive. "Something is coming," he muttered. But nobody listened. They were too busy living their normal, comfortable lives. Even the ocean seemed restless. Ships reported strange waves, unexplainable currents, and sudden changes in water temperature. Fish moved in patterns that made no sense. The sea was whispering a secret, but humanity had not yet learned how to listen. As the day went on, tension quietly grew. People felt restless. Arguments broke out over small things. Drivers honked more aggressively. Friends and co-workers snapped at each other. Humanity, for all its progress, was unaware that the small, creeping stress was just the beginning. In Elena's lab, the signal began to change. Its rhythm shifted, faster now, almost like it was testing humanity's patience. She stared at the screen, her hands trembling. "It's learning," she whispered. "It's learning how we react." The thought made her heart race. What could be observing them? And why? By nightfall, the city seemed calm again. Lights twinkled in the buildings, and people slept peacefully in their homes. The drones rested, the cars stopped, and the world seemed to breathe. But outside the city, something waited, something watched. Something had arrived silently, just beyond human vision. No one knew it yet, but humanity was standing on the edge of a moment that would change everything. The calm before the storm was over, and soon the storm would arrive, unstoppable and unrelenting. And in that quiet, unnoticed hour, the first threads of the coming chaos began to weave themselves into the fabric of human life. Every choice, every reaction, Every small decision would matter. Humanity's story was about to change forever, and the universe would never forget what was coming next. The night passed quietly in Neo-London, but Dr. Elena Torres barely slept. The signal she had discovered the day before was still in her mind. It pulsed like a heartbeat, slow and steady, yet strangely deliberate. She knew it was intelligent. Something was sending it, something far beyond Earth. By morning, news of strange signals reached global communication centers. Satellites across the world detected patterns that made no sense. Governments called emergency meetings. Scientists argued fiercely. It's a natural phenomenon, one insisted. No, it's artificial, another shouted. Meanwhile, ordinary people began noticing small but unsettling changes. Traffic lights blinked in strange sequences. Electronic billboards displayed flickering messages for a fraction of a second. Words no one could read clearly. Birds flew in unusual formations, circling cities before disappearing into clouds. In Neo-London, Elena and her team worked tirelessly. We have to understand what it wants, she said. Her assistant Ravi studied the data, growing more anxious. It's almost like it's learning us, he whispered. Learning how we think, how we react. Across the ocean in New Tokyo, similar patterns appeared. Pilots reported strange signals in the skies. Ships experienced sudden electrical malfunctions. In New Cairo, people noticed their devices acting oddly. Phones turned on and off, computers froze, and televisions flickered. Despite these warnings, most humans ignored the signs. They thought it was a glitch or a prank. Only a few, scientists, journalists, and the curious, felt the growing unease. Among them was a young journalist named Lila Moreno. She received a strange email with a series of numbers and symbols. At first, she thought it was spam, but something about it felt deliberate, like a message meant for her. Elena's team discovered that the signals were spreading faster than any natural phenomenon could. They moved across continents in seconds, penetrating communication networks, satellites, even personal devices. It's everywhere, Elena said, her voice shaking, and it's observing everything. Animals reacted too. Dogs barked at empty streets. Cats hid in corners. Even fish in aquariums swam frantically, as if sensing a silent disturbance. The world was subtly changing, and humanity did not yet notice the pattern forming around them. As the days passed, tension grew. People argued more quickly. Traffic accidents increased. Minor disputes turned violent. Psychologists reported an unusual rise in stress and anxiety worldwide. Something about the signals affected humans indirectly. It tested their patience, pushing them toward breaking points. Elena worked around the clock, running simulations. If this is intelligent, it's studying our behavior, she said. It's testing how we react under pressure. Every mistake we make, every outburst, it's learning from us. Ravi shivered. Are we being observed? He asked quietly. In a quiet village in South America, an elderly woman named Marisol noticed strange lights in the sky. They flickered and moved in perfect synchronization, unlike anything she had ever seen. She felt fear and awe at the same time. They are here, she whispered, watching us. But when she tried to warn anyone, no one believed her. The signals began to interfere with human technology in more noticeable ways. Traffic systems failed simultaneously in multiple cities. Satellites experienced glitches that caused global communication delays. Power grids flickered, plunging entire regions into temporary darkness. Panic slowly started to spread. Even nature seemed to react. Trees swayed without wind. Storms formed suddenly over quiet towns. Animals gathered in unusual groups, as if preparing for something inevitable. Humanity, so confident in its control over Earth, remained unaware of the silent presence watching every move. By the end of the week, Elena realized the truth. The signals were not random. They were patterns, messages, tests. Something beyond human comprehension was observing, learning, and waiting. Humanity was being measured, their behavior recorded in real time. And the more they resisted or ignored the signs, the more the observers learned about human weakness and human strength. At night, Elena stared out at the city from her lab window. Lights flickered below, and somewhere in the distance, a dog barked at nothing. She could feel the tension in the air, heavy and unspoken. "They are out there," she whispered to herself. "And soon they will push us to the edge." And deep in the shadows of space, the signals pulsed, silent but deliberate. The observers were patient, but even patience had limits. Humanity's true test was about to begin, and the first cracks in their calm society were already forming. No one knew exactly what would happen next, but the universe had already noticed humanity, and it would not forget. The days after the strange signal spread across Earth brought unease that no one could ignore. Small problems became bigger, and ordinary arguments turned into fights. The tension in cities, towns, and villages was visible. People felt restless, angry, and anxious for no clear reason. In Neo-London, the streets were more crowded than usual. Drivers shouted at each other. Pedestrians pushed through crowds impatiently. Shops reported arguments between customers and workers over the smallest mistakes. Even in offices, co-workers quarreled over trivial matters. Something invisible was testing humanity, and humans were failing. Dr. Elena Torres noticed the changes in her lab. "The signals are affecting humans more than we thought," she said. "It's not just technology or animals. It's us. They're seeing how easily we lose control." Her assistant Ravi nodded silently, worry etched on his face. If people keep reacting like this, there could be chaos. Across the world, governments struggled to maintain order. Minor conflicts escalated quickly. Countries argued over resources, trade, and borders. Social media exploded with anger. News channels reported protests that started peacefully but turned violent in hours. Humanity was snapping, piece by piece. In New Tokyo, a scientist named Kenji observed the changes in human behavior. "It's like a test," he told his colleagues. "The more we panic, the more the observers learn about us. Our patience is fragile and it's cracking." He looked at the data, which showed rising stress, aggression, and unpredictable human behavior. Even ordinary people felt the pressure. In Sao Paulo, a mother argued with her neighbor over parking spaces. In Cairo, a man yelled at a stranger for stepping on his foot. Small irritations, multiplied by millions, created a wave of tension that no one could stop. Meanwhile, the strange signals continued to pulse through the earth. They seemed to respond to human behavior, growing stronger when humans were angry or scared. The pattern was clear. Someone or something was measuring humanity's ability to stay calm under stress, and humans were failing the test. Elena's team tried to warn the public. "Stay calm. Don't panic. Treat each other with patience," she pleaded during interviews. But her words were drowned out by fear and confusion. Humanity was addicted to reacting, to arguing, to blaming. The signals fed off it, learning faster, growing stronger. Even nature reacted. Animals gathered near cities, avoiding humans who were tense and angry. Birds flew in patterns that almost seemed like warnings. Storms formed unpredictably, and sudden temperature changes unsettled the population further. The planet itself seemed to push humanity toward its breaking point. In a quiet village in Europe, an old man named Thomas noticed his neighbors fighting more often. Shops closed earlier. Streets became tense. "I've seen the world get angry before," he whispered, "but never like this. It feels wrong." Yet even he could not predict how far things would go. As the week went on, incidents of violence grew. Minor accidents triggered riots. Social unrest spread across continents. Humanity, proud of its progress in technology, was crumbling from the inside. And still, the signals pulsed silently, almost smugly, as if observing every outburst and every panic-stricken choice. Elena stayed up nights watching the patterns. She realized that patience was the key, and humanity had almost none left. Every argument, every display of frustration was recorded, measured, and analyzed. And the more humans failed to remain calm, the more they proved to point to the unseen observers, that humanity, despite its intelligence, was fragile under pressure. Ravi looked at Elena nervously. "Do you think they enjoy this?" he asked quietly. Elena shook her head. "I don't know, but they are learning. They are waiting for the moment we completely lose control. Meanwhile, ordinary people began to notice that the world felt off. "Why is everyone so angry?" asked a teenager in Los Angeles. "Why do small things feel huge?" Parents tried to comfort their children, but even they could not explain the invisible tension suffocating the earth. And somewhere, far beyond the planet, the observers continued their silent study. They watched humanity falter under pressure. They saw fights, panic, and frustration multiply like sparks in dry grass. The experiment was revealing the truth. Humanity's patience was fragile, and when pushed, it could break entirely. By the end of the week, humanity teetered on the edge. People did not know what they were afraid of. They did not know who or what was watching. They only knew that small irritations became major conflicts, that anger spread faster than reason, and that the world itself seemed to push them toward snapping. The calm of the past was gone. The invisible presence, the signals, and the subtle changes in nature had created a tension no one could ignore. Humanity's patience had reached its fragile limit, and soon the first true test would begin, one that would force humans to confront the consequences of their anger and fear. The world had grown tense. Streets were crowded with angry faces. Arguments broke out over the smallest mistakes. Even governments struggled to control the unrest. Humanity had reached the fragile edge of its patience. And then, without warning, they arrived. No one saw them at first. They were silent, invisible, yet their presence was undeniable. Animals froze mid-step, birds fell silent, and the wind seemed to hold its breath. Something not of this earth had come. In Neo-London, Dr. Elena Torres noticed strange readings on her instruments. "It's huge," she whispered, staring at her screens. "I don't think it's a satellite. This is something alive, or something that thinks like life." Her assistant Ravi felt a chill run down his spine. "Are they watching us now?" Across the globe, similar anomalies appeared. In Tokyo, lights flickered in unusual patterns. In Sao Paulo, rivers and seas seemed to move unnaturally, as if stirred by a giant unseen hand. People felt the shift instinctively, though they could not explain it. A heavy silence settled over cities, broken only by whispers of fear. The entities moved silently among humanity. They did not speak. They did not attack. They only observed. Machines, animals, and even humans reacted to their presence. Dogs growled at empty streets. Cats hid in corners. Birds circled overhead in precise, unnatural patterns. The air itself felt different. Thicker, heavier, as though carrying the weight of 1,000 unseen eyes. In her lab, Elena watched in awe and fear. "They're studying us, every move we make," she said. Ravi nodded, pale and silent. "Do they understand us?" he asked. "I think so," Elena replied quietly. "And I don't know if that's good or bad." Ordinary people noticed strange phenomena too. Streetlights blinked in impossible sequences. Phones displayed symbols that vanished before anyone could read them. Some reported hearing faint whispers, though no one could trace the source. Panic started to ripple through communities. People felt uneasy, as though the world had suddenly become a place where nothing was certain. Even nature responded to the arrival. Trees swayed without wind. Rivers changed direction slightly. Fish gathered in massive schools, moving in perfect, synchronized formations. It was as though the planet itself recognized the arrival of something greater than humanity. In small towns, elderly villagers whispered stories of spirits and ancient watchers. "I've seen the skies change like this only once before," said one woman, clutching her grandson's hand. "Something is here and it's not human." But most brushed off the warnings. Humanity was too busy arguing, panicking, and reacting to see the bigger picture. Elena's team tried to communicate. They sent signals, tried patterns, even attempted to match the pulse of mysterious entities. But there was no response, only observation. It was as if the entities were reading everything without needing words. And the more humans panicked, the more the observers seemed to focus. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of the world's cities, animals gathered. Predators and prey alike avoided humans, sensing the tension and the unseen watchers. Even insects behaved unusually, moving in large, coordinated groups. Something about the entities influenced every living thing. And then the first undeniable sign appeared. In a remote desert, a small group of scientists saw them. Massive, translucent forms hovering above the ground, shimmering with colors that no human could name. They were not solid, but not entirely invisible. Their shapes shifted and flowed, reflecting the surroundings while remaining alien. The observers were here, and they were learning. Elena's heart pounded. "We are part of their experiment," she whispered. "Every move, every reaction, they are recording it. Waiting." Ravi swallowed hard. "Waiting for what?" he asked. Elena looked out at the city, lights flickering below. "For the moment we lose control," she said quietly, and humanity continued, unaware of the magnitude of what had arrived. People argued, shouted, and panicked. Machines malfunctioned. Nature shifted. The entities moved silently, observing, learning, calculating. The calm before it ended. The storm of observation had begun. By the end of the day, cities were quieter in some ways, but louder in others. Fear and tension filled the streets. Humanity's fragile patience was being tested like never before, and the silent watchers waited, patient and relentless, ready to see what would happen when humans finally snapped. No one yet knew that the arrival was only the beginning. What came next would challenge humanity in ways they could never imagine, and change the story of the planet forever. The world had changed. Humanity had been tested, and the test had begun in earnest. Streets were filled with shouting, panic, and chaos. People who had never argued before now fought over food, water, and space. Governments tried to control the unrest, but nothing worked. Humanity was on the edge, and the unseen observers were watching every reaction. In Neo-London, Dr. Elena Torres looked out at the city from her lab. Fires burned in the distance. People ran in panic. Machines malfunctioned, lights flickered, and vehicles crashed into one another. "We've reached it," she whispered to Ravi. "The breaking point. We've lost control." Ravi shivered. "It's everywhere, all over the world. How did it get so bad so fast?" Elena didn't answer. She didn't need to. The signs were clear. Humanity had been patient for years, but the constant stress, fear, and subtle manipulation had pushed people to the edge. Now chaos ruled. In Tokyo, protests erupted into violent riots. Soldiers struggled to hold streets. In Sao Paulo, power outages caused panic in the markets. In Cairo, neighbors turned against neighbors over small disputes. Humanity's inner anger had exploded, and it spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, the entities observed silently. They did not intervene, but every human action, every moment of panic, every burst of violence was recorded. They were learning. They were studying the limits of human patience, and it was terrifying. Elena and Ravi tried to warn people, broadcast messages to calm humanity. Stay calm. Do not panic. Elena's voice echoed through the city networks, but her words were drowned out by fear. People no longer listened. They shouted, ran, and attacked. Humanity's patience had finally snapped. Nature joined the chaos. Storms formed suddenly over cities. Rivers flooded streets without warning. Animals fled from human areas, sensing the danger. Even the air felt heavy and charged, as if warning of something far worse to come. In a small town in Europe, a family argued over the last bottle of water. The argument escalated quickly. Neighbors joined in. Soon, fights broke out in the streets. Children cried, women screamed, and men shouted. Humanity was tearing itself apart from the inside. Elena watched the patterns on her screens. "Every reaction matters," she said quietly. "Every outburst, every violent choice, they are seeing it, learning from it." Ravi nodded, horrified. "Are we being judged?" he asked. Elena looked at him with a mixture of fear and realization. "No, not judged, measured. And we are failing." Even governments could not respond. Military forces clashed with civilians in multiple cities. Communication networks failed under the strain of panic. Hospitals overflowed. Humanity had lost control of itself, and the world descended into anarchy. The entities continued to move silently. Their forms shimmered above cities, invisible to most eyes, but influencing everything. Animals behaved strangely. Machines acted unpredictably, and nature itself seemed to conspire with the observers. The breaking point was not just human, it was global. In New York, a journalist named Lila Moreno broadcasted live. "People, calm down. We have to work together," she pleaded. But her words barely registered. Humanity's emotions were too strong, too volatile. The observers were patient, watching the true nature of humans emerge. Anger, fear, and desperation. Elena felt a wave of helplessness. All the preparations, all the warnings had failed. Humanity had reached a moment no one could reverse. Panic and rage had become contagious, spreading faster than any virus. The fragile fabric of society had torn apart, and then something unexpected happened. Even in the chaos, small acts of bravery, compassion, and courage appeared. People saved strangers, protected children, and helped the injured. The entities recorded these too, learning not only about human weakness, but also about their strength. Humanity had snapped, but they had not lost everything. By nightfall, the world was unrecognizable. Cities burned, forests trembled, and oceans churned violently. Humanity had reached the edge of its limits. And high above, the silent watchers observed patiently, knowing the consequences of the breaking point would echo across generations. Elena stared out at the chaos, whispering to herself, "We've finally shown them what we are, all of it, our worst and our best." Ravi nodded silently, too stunned for words. No species on Earth would ever forget this day. Humanity had reached the ultimate test of patience, and in failing or surviving, it had revealed the true depth of its nature. The storm of chaos had begun, and the universe would never forget what humans did when pushed too far. The world after the breaking point was unrecognizable. Fires still burned in cities. Rivers overflowed. Storms ravaged towns. Humanity had lost control, and the planet itself seemed to tremble under the weight of their anger. But even in this chaos, one truth became clear. No species on Earth remained untouched. In the forests of Siberia, wolves roamed cautiously. Herds of deer scattered at the slightest sound. Birds flew in large, coordinated formations, warning each other of dangers that humans had brought upon themselves. Animals had sensed the collapse, and many adapted quickly to survive the turmoil. In the oceans, fish and whales reacted to the global unrest. Migratory patterns changed. Schools of fish swam in unusual paths. Whales sang songs that carried farther than usual, almost like a call of warning. Even the smallest creatures were affected, and even the seas seemed alive with tension. Humans continued their desperate struggle. In New Delhi, a man fought for water in a crowded street. In Rio de Janeiro, neighbors turned against each other over food supplies. Humanity's anger and fear spread like wildfire, leaving destruction in its wake. And everywhere, the observers watched silently, recording every moment. But amidst the chaos, some humans displayed extraordinary courage. Doctors and nurses braved riots to save lives. Teachers protected children in dangerous streets. Ordinary people helped strangers, risking themselves in ways that showed the true strength of humanity. The observers noticed these acts too. They were learning not only about human weakness, but also about human resilience. In Neo-London, Dr. Elena Torres and her team moved through the chaos to help evacuate civilians. "We cannot give up," she said, carrying supplies to a group trapped in a burning building. Ravi followed, guiding the people to safety. Even in the most violent streets, acts of kindness shone like beacons. Everywhere, humans were tested. Families defended their homes. Soldiers hesitated, unsure whether to fight or protect civilians. Communities adapted quickly, creating safe zones and shelters in the midst of disasters. Humanity's patience may have broken, but their resourcefulness and courage were undeniable. Meanwhile, the observers, those silent entities, continued to record everything. They had seen human anger, fear, and chaos. But now they saw something more: determination, bravery, and the instinct to protect others, even at great risk. Humanity was more than destruction. It was creativity, courage, and intelligence, alive even in the darkest moments. In the Arctic, polar bears and seals adjusted to changes in the ice. Birds nested in safer areas. Even the tiniest insects move with purpose, surviving the ripple effects of human conflict. Every species on Earth responded, learning, adapting, and remembering. Humanity's failure affected them all, but their resilience was remarkable. Elena watched the patterns on her screen. Cities were recovering slowly, but the world had changed forever. She whispered, "We may have snapped, but we are not lost. Our strength is still here, in the people who help, who care, who survive." Ravi nodded quietly. "Even in chaos, we can show them who we are." And the observers recorded everything. Humanity's worst moments were captured, yes, but so were the best. Every brave act, every choice to help, every moment of selflessness was noted. The universe would remember not only the breaking point, but also the moments that define the true nature of humans. Even small acts mattered. A child shared food with a stranger. A man rescued a dog from a burning building. A teacher led children to safety during a storm. Each act, though tiny, became part of the larger story. Proof that humanity could rise even when pushed to the edge. By the end of the week, the world had begun to calm, slowly but surely. Fires were contained. Floods receded. People started to rebuild. Nature itself seemed to breathe again, though still wary of human chaos. And high above, the silent watchers moved on, having observed the full range of humanity, from its deepest flaws to its greatest strengths. No species on Earth would forget this time. Animals, humans, even the elements had been tested and had adapted. The breaking point had revealed weakness, yes, but it had also revealed resilience. The observers had seen it all, and humanity had left its mark, not just as a destructive force, but as a species capable of courage, intelligence, and compassion. Elena looked out the horizon, exhausted but hopeful. "We've shown them what we are," she said. "All of it. And even if we almost failed, we survived. We adapted. We endured." Ravi smiled faintly, nodding. "No species will forget this day," he said, "including us." The silent watchers moved quietly into space, leaving Earth forever changed. The world would heal, slowly, but the story of humanity's trial would echo through time. Every species had been affected, and every species would remember. Humanity had snapped, but it had also shown its true strength. And in the quiet after the storm, a lesson remained. The universe was watching. Every choice mattered. Every act, small or great, could define the future of life on Earth. Humanity was fragile, but it was also extraordinary. The world had endured chaos. Humanity had snapped, reaching the breaking point. Yet even in destruction, the strength of humans shone. Cities were scarred, forests scarred, oceans restless, but life persisted. And on this day, the day no species would ever forget, everything changed forever. Dr. Elena Torres walked through the streets of Neo-London, the smoke of burned buildings still curling into the sky. People were silent, exhausted, and wary. Children clung to their parents. Animals cautiously returned, and even the wind seemed calmer. The city, though damaged, breathed with a new sense of awareness. Elena paused at the edge of a square, watching as people helped each other. Strangers offered water, comfort, and shelter. Acts of courage, small and large, lit the world like tiny stars. "This is it," she whispered to Ravi. "This is what they'll remember. Not our panic, but our courage, our care, our fight to survive." Ravi nodded, exhausted but inspired. "We almost lost ourselves," he said. "But we didn't, and that counts." High above the planet, the silent observers lingered, their shimmering forms still present though less intrusive. They had seen the worst and the best of humanity. They had witnessed anger, destruction, panic, but also bravery, intelligence, compassion, and unity. Every choice humans made had been recorded, every act of courage noted. The universe had observed humanity at its most fragile and its most extraordinary. In the oceans, whales sang songs that carried across miles, their melodies telling the story of survival. Fish adapted, moving with purpose. On land, animals returned to their habitats, cautious but resilient. The planet itself seemed to breathe with relief, sensing the tension easing. Elena and Ravi reached a small community center where people had gathered. Inside, the injured were tended to. Children were comforted. Food and water were shared. The atmosphere, though tired and somber, carried hope. Humanity had survived the breaking point, and they were beginning to rebuild. In distant lands, similar scenes played out. Communities, once fractured by fear and anger, came together. Leaders emerged not by power, but by courage and empathy. Ordinary people became heroes in small ways, proving that even at the edge of despair, humans could rise. The observers watched silently, absorbing every detail. They had studied human weakness, yes, but more importantly, they had learned about human strength. Every species on Earth had been affected by the events, the fear, the chaos, and the resilience. And the universe, in its quiet way, would remember this moment as a defining chapter in Earth's history. Elena stood outside, looking up at the night sky. Stars shimmered above, but she could sense a presence beyond them, watching still. "Do you think they understand us?" she asked Robbie. "I don't know," he replied. "But I think they understand this, that we are more than our mistakes. We are more than our panic. We are capable of greatness." In a small village in Africa, a young boy helped a wounded bird. In a flooded city, a woman saved a child trapped in debris. In the deserts of Australia, neighbors helped strangers find water. These small acts, multiplied by millions across the globe, were proof of humanity's enduring spirit. And somewhere, far in the silent reaches of space, the observers recorded it all. Every species on Earth, every human act of despair or courage was noted. The breaking point had passed. Humanity had snapped, but they had survived. They had endured. They had proven their value not through perfection, but through persistence, resilience, and compassion. By the dawn of the next day, Earth had changed. The scars of chaos remained, but they served as lessons. Humanity had learned the consequences of impatience, fear, and anger, but they had also learned the power of unity, courage, and selflessness. Every species, from humans to the smallest insects, would remember this moment. Elena held her hands over her heart, feeling the weight of what had occurred. "We've shown them," she whispered. "All of it. Our fear, our anger, and our courage, and they will never forget." The planet began to heal, slowly but steadily. Humans rebuilt homes, helped animals recover, and repaired nature wherever they could. And though the observers had moved on, their presence lingered in memory, a reminder that the universe had been watching and that every act mattered. And so, a moment in history was written into the memory of Earth. No species will forget the day humanity reached its breaking point and rose above it. The storm had passed, but the lessons endured. Humans had shown both their fragility and their extraordinary potential. This was the day the universe learned the true nature of humanity. A day of chaos, fear, courage, and survival. A day no species would ever forget.